What's good, YouTube? It's Quinn Wade, basketball analysis, coming to y'all with another video. Check out my website, analysisplayground.com. Link will be in the description in the comment section below. Also, check out my Facebook page, analysisplayground.com. Link will be in the description in the comment section below. If you want a t-shirt, you can message me on Facebook. I got different type of logos and images. You can get any color shirt, or you can change the logo on the shirt. Just message me on Facebook if you're interested. What's good, YouTube? Quinn Wade coming to y'all early on this Saturday morning with a topic. We're going to talk about Dwane Casey and the Detroit Pistons, specifically, as you can see by the title, Blake Griffin. At one point was a top 3 MVP candidate, number 1 overall pick, 2010 Rookie of the Year, multiple All-NBA player, All-NBA team, multiple time consecutive All-Star games, multiple. Then he became a guy that, hey, is Blake Griffin overrated? Did he fall off? Where's his career at? He gets a huge extension. They want to build around Blake. He's going out there showing that he can carry a team. He's hitting game winners last year. And next thing you know, he went down with a couple ticky-tack injuries. And next thing you know, Jerry West, as soon as he was available to trade Blake Griffin, he was gone. And they was able to get a nice haul back from him and some aspiring contracts and some contracts they could waive, giving them more financial flexibility while also getting some nice pieces in return, youth-wise. Next thing you know, Blake Griffin is in Detroit. Players don't know what to think. The coaches don't know what to think. And they didn't even have Stan Van Gundy for this season coming up, who was coaching them last year. But they do have a guy in Dwane Casey who has really been a great coach when it comes to winning. Now, his playoff record isn't good because they lost and flopped a lot in the playoffs. That's one of the main reasons why he got fired, because they just couldn't get over the hump. But you definitely got to give a man credit for staying consistent, because as soon as he got fired, a month later, or a couple weeks later, I should say, he was back in the NBA with the Detroit Pistons. As soon as he became available, he was picked right back up. So people around the league obviously respect Dwane Casey. He was coach of the year. He was able to lead Toronto to the number 1 seed in the East, and that even to the Eastern Conference Finals, something that whole organization was never able to do. And they actually won 2 games, too, in that Eastern Conference Finals. And people sometimes say DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Lowry, they're not top 10 players. Even though I definitely will agree with that, neither is Andre Drummond, Reggie Jackson, and Blake Griffin. Now, that doesn't mean that it's all over. I just feel like they're not a championship contender in the East. And I think most of us will agree on that. Even though a Detroit Pistons fan, look at this roster, look at the role players, look at the star players, and see how they fit. It don't really looks like this team is going to be competing for a championship anytime soon. And with Andre Drummond and Blake Griffin getting the max, it's going to be hard to add talent outside of the draft and free agents willing to take a pay cut, or they trying to try out players on 2-way contracts. Other than that, they're not going to find much talent because they don't have the money to really spend on it. Now, as you see by the title, we're going to talk about Blake Griffin in general. Can he become back that player that we all thought he was and all thought that he was going to be? Because he's almost 30. He's at the bad half of his career where he's going to start declining. Everybody see that he ain't the same after the knee injuries and stuff. He's not as athletic. He's not as dominant offensively. He settles a lot for the jumpers. He's starting to shoot a lot of threes too, which keeps his field goal percentage pretty low because he's taking a lot of perimeter shots. Now, he's a 34% three-point shooter, which isn't terrible, but he relies on that 3-ball a lot now, and he prefers to shoot that more than get into the paint. Now, I always felt like Blake Griffin was a hard worker, whether people give him credit for that or not, because he couldn't shoot free throws, he couldn't shoot mid-range jumpers, and he wouldn't even shoot a 3 when he was in college and in his first couple seasons in the Clippers. Now he shoots the jumper, now he shoots the 3, and he's pretty decent at it. Is he elite? Is he great at it? No, but he's respectable. You rather let Blake Griffin shoot that than get a layup or a dunk? I would agree. But he still can catch fire, and sometimes he can knock down a couple in a row. and that can get that floor spacing enough for him to open it up for Andre Drummond. Now, another thing that we really didn't see was how he plays with Reggie Jackson. Reggie Jackson was injured when he first came over, and at the same time, when he started playing with Reggie Jackson, they started getting a little chemistry, and they railed off a couple W's. Now, this time they have a whole season to start with. Let me put that in perspective. They're starting the whole season fresh. They started the whole season injury free. Now, to me, I personally like Reggie Jackson. As you guys know, I'm a fan of Reggie Jackson. I believe he can play. He's a guy that can handle the ball. He's a guy that can take over fourth quarters and knock down big shots. He's been able to do that since he's been in Detroit, and he even did it in the playoffs and in the regular seasons with OKC. And they gave him a shot. They traded for him and gave him $80 million for a reason, because they felt like he can be their franchise point guard. Now, that might hurt them now, because after taking Blake Griffin Hughes' contract, they don't really have that much room for other players, but that means they're going to really expect a lot of things from Reggie Jackson. Now, players that had similar circumstances was Drew Holiday, for example, Eric Gordon. We all knew that they can play. We all knew that they can, have a huge impact on the team, but they just continued to get injured. Eric Gordon ends up winning Sixth Man of the Year his first year with the Rockets, and he was in the runner-up. He was in the run-ins for it this year. Obviously, you can also say Drew Holiday. He had a breakout good season this year, including in the playoffs, and that was mainly because he was able to stay healthy. And Alvin Gentry is an offensive genius when it comes to that side of the court. So he was able to finally get a chance to use Drew Holiday, but they still gave him the long-term commitment, and they still gave him the money because they knew what type of player Drew Holiday was, and it was going to be hard to find another player of that caliber. Now, people don't really choose to go to Detroit. People don't really look forward to going to Detroit. So to get a guy like Reggie Jackson that wants to prove himself and prove that he can be a starting point guard, they actually did make the playoffs. Now, Blake Griffin has improved his handle. He is more versatile offensively. He's one of the best passing power forwards in the league, big men in the league in general, because he can get you 3 to 4 to 5 assists a game, and he creates shots for other people. Now, I should say the last 5 seasons, he's been getting around close to 5 or more assists. Even though he did turn the ball over 3 times a game, that's because the floor spacing was so bad. And that's one reason why I think that the fit with this Detroit team, I thought that they would do a little bit more reconstructing on his roster coming into this season, especially going into free agency. Because at the end of the day, they don't really have no three-point shooting. They don't really have the floor spacing. And if one of them go down, their season is going to get hurt real bad, because they don't really have a legitimate backup to Andre Drummond. They don't really have a good enough backup to Reggie Jackson. And they really don't have a power forward that's as good or as close to being as good as Blake Griffin. And that is because they cap space. But I feel like Blake Griffin was proven that he was still one of the better players when he was playing in the Clippers last year, and he was actually carrying them to a playoff record before he continued to get injured. That's the biggest problem for Blake Griffin, is that he just can't stay healthy. He gets all these injuries, and he just cannot put together a great season because of it. Now, I feel like the talent is still there. If you averaging 21.7 rebounds and 5 assists, that's all-star caliber numbers. So in the East, him getting traded to the East, he should be a guaranteed, all-star, just like Paul Millsap when he went to the East, because there's really not that many great players, and Blake Griffin can get you 20 points a game. His knees are shot. He's not as good as he used to be athletically. His jump shot isn't that dominant. He still was able to average 21 and 7. Even with bad floor spacing and Reggie Jackson being injured and no three-point shooting or even no ball movement, really. He was trying to create his own shot. He was trying to create shots for his teammates. He had to do more, and I feel like that should be fixed with Reggie Jackson. Reggie Jackson can allow Blake Griffin to play off the ball more. He can allow Blake Griffin to get easier baskets because of pick and roll, because Reggie Jackson is a decent pick and roll player, and Reggie Jackson can get to the basket and pass when he has to, but get to the basket and finish. He has a good stop and pop game, And his three-point shot has always been suspect, but Reggie Jackson can knock that down too. And it puts Blake Griffin in situations where he doesn't have to force or dribble or try to create all these shots for himself and others because Reggie Jackson is a ball handler that can get to where he wants on the court, and he has a score first mentality, which puts pressure on the defense to either collapse or just give Blake Griffin a ride to the basket for a layup or a dunk, or even a high-low game with Andre Drummond where he can get a layup or a dunk or alley oop, I should say, when Blake Griffin gets the ball in the pop area, or even if he dives to the rim, somebody's gonna have to collapse either on Reggie or on Blake Griffin, which caused a lob for Andre Drummond. The biggest problem with this team is neither of those three players can shoot. At least Chris Paul could shoot a three. At least Chris Paul can shoot a jump shot consistently when he was with the Clippers, and they was a perennial 50-win team because of that. Now, that's their biggest problem. I don't think that Blake Griffin will have any trouble making the All-Star game. The only thing that's going to keep Blake Griffin from not making the All-Star game is injuries, because he's going to get you 20 and 8 and 5. That's going to be enough to make the All-Star game. The wins, I don't think that will matter either, because they're going to rely a lot on Blake Griffin he's going to be a big focal point in the offense, and which he should, because if you're going to trade for a guy and pay this guy that much money, you got to get as much out of him as you can. So I do expect Blake Griffin to play a big role like he did when he first got in Detroit, and he was putting up monster numbers for those first couple games. And now with Reggie Jackson back, that should allow his job to be easier. Now, he ended the season averaging 19 points, 43 from the field, 34 from three, 6.2 assists a game when he played with Detroit. He didn't average 20 points a game that season, but that's also a little misleading. If you look at what he did that month, Blake Griffin had a solid beginning with Detroit, I should say. In March, he still gave you 21 points, 46% from the field, 43 from three, 6.8 rebounds, and 6.8 assists, 6.5 rebounds. He ain't gonna get as many rebounds because he played with Andre Drummond. Andre Drummond is like DeAndre Jordan. His biggest skill set is finishing at the rim and gobbling up as many rebounds as he can. So they don't really need Blake Griffin to be a 20 and 10 guy, even though it will be good if he still was able to do it, because the more rebounds and the more impact you can make, the better the team will be. So if he can go out there and get 20 and 10, that's even better. But Andre Drummond going to get you 13 plus rebounds a game, guaranteed. That's his skill set. That's his specialty. And that's something that we both know. But like I said, the difference between the Clipper team and the Detroit was that they had J.J. Redick. It is that because they had Chris Paul, and those guys can shoot. They don't have really any consistent shooters on this Detroit team, which is going to mean they're going to have a lot of ugly possessions, a lot of tough baskets, and it might end up having a lot of injuries in that circle too, because if you got to do that much to create a shot, that means you might have to force up some shots, take a lot of contact. So I think Blake Griffin is going to have that mentality where I've been off since we didn't make the playoffs. I can build chemistry with my teammates, get to know my teammates, practice with my teammates. Training camp will actually help too. Preseason will help them iron out a lot of their plays and a lot of their runs and get a little bit more familiar with each other. He has more time to rehab that body because he's been out so long because they didn't make the playoffs. It gives Blake Griffin a lot of time to just focus on recovering, focus on, the little things that made him great, and then also focus on some new things with his teammates and his coach. Dwane Casey is going to make sure this team is one of the best offensive teams in the league. He's going to try to get the best out of Reggie, the best out of Blake, the best out of Drummond. That's what you should do because they're your highest paid players. But Blake Griffin is an upgrade personally to me over Tobias Harris, who they had before. And he's a better player, better passer, not a better shooter, but he's a more dominant scorer. And I feel like with Reggie Jackson, that's going to take a lot of pressure off him, and that's going to make his job a lot easier. Plus, like I said, the addition of Dwane Casey, he's going to find ways to make the best out of Blake Griffin passing and athleticism. And I think we're going to see Blake Griffin getting some easier baskets, and hopefully that turns into more wins which would definitely give Blake Griffin a little bit more credit because he didn't choose to go to Detroit. He didn't ask for a trade. He wasn't trying to get out of the Clippers. They tried to get rid of him, and they wanted to trade him. And he wanted to stay with the Clippers, obviously, because he signed the extension. So I think him knowing that Detroit wanted him, he knows that Dwane Casey is one of the better coaches in the league, and he already knows how to win games and put his players in positions where they could succeed. We might see a more rejuvenated, more energized, and more hungrier Blake Griffin than we ever seen before. Not saying that he never was, but what everybody doubted him, everybody giving up on him, everybody saying that he lost it and he's washed up, and he has a whole off season to work on his game and build chemistry with his coach and his teammates. And, they got enough talent to win at least 40, 38, 39, 41 games, maybe even 43. That should give him, a little bit more motivation to go out there and prove that he's still one of the better players in the league. And you got to keep in mind he's playing against weaker competition on a daily basis because he is in the East. He gets to beat up on those bad teams. And a lot of them times you can put up empty stats and empty numbers, which make your stats look better when you look it up. So going to the East, he will be playing against easier competition. He will have more opportunities to dominate games because he is in a weaker conference than he was in the West, going against the top competition, the top teams, and the top players on a nightly basis. But he still showed that he was an all-star every single season besides the last couple. He was one of the best players in the league. So I think him having Dwane Casey and having a healthy Reggie Jackson will be a huge key to him having a rejuvenated season. This season probably can resurrect his career and help him get into the Hall of Fame if he can get back on that All-NBA second or third team, at worst third team, and if he can get a couple more All-Star appearances. He might not win a championship. He might not be the franchise guy that we all thought he would be, but at least he can try to attempt to get into that Hall of Fame, which will help his legacy out if he can add some more All-NBA and All-Star teams. Even if it's doing it in the weak East, well, if that's how you got to get in, that's how you got to get in. Check out my website, analysisplayground.com. Link in the description, comment section below. Check out my Facebook page, analysisplayground.com. Link in the description, comment section below. If you like the video, like. And if you want to check out my t-shirts like I did in the intro, they will be on my Facebook page, analysisplayground.com. You can design, customize the logo, customize the shirt. And if you want a shirt, inbox me and I can get it shipped out to you. Just let me know the details and we can get that deal done. And let me know, do you think Blake Griffin's career is over? Do you think he was a bust? Do you think he was overrated? Do you think he's underrated? Or do you think he have a resurgent this year with the Detroit Pistons coming into the year healthy, having the coach of the year, Dwane Casey, and having another all-star player in Andre Drummond on his roster? Do you think that would be enough for them with the lack of floor spacing to get Blake Griffin back to where he wants to be? And that's one of the top players in the league. Respected is another thing. Getting that respect back from the players, getting that respect back from everybody else is something that he might even do this year if he's winning and if he's back to his dominant fashion.